listening to the Motherhood Experience, a podcast where you are part of the conversation with moms, for moms, and by moms. Let's jump into this episode with me, your host, Val Kleppen. Hello, friend, and welcome back to the Motherhood Experience podcast. Look at you. You look good today. Look, you got your hair all the way it is, and you got your clothes all the way they are. You're looking beautiful. So glad to have you joining me this week for another episode of the Motherhood Experience, where I have a conversation with a woman of mystery. Not really. I mean, she was actually pretty transparent in this episode, but she goes by Belle's Dirty Dishes on Instagram. So you and I can refer to her as Belle, and she joined me today to share about her motherhood journey, what she has learned in motherhood, and how she has been inspired to encourage other moms in their own journey, how we're not alone, and that resources are readily available to us if we are just open to being ourselves and connecting with other people who are their genuine selves as well. I really enjoyed this conversation. I have been following her since I got back on the Instagram train after the podcast launched, and have just so enjoyed her content and her personality and the things that she is unashamed and unafraid to share. I've eaten it up. And so absolutely grateful that she was willing to be a guest and share with us today. Please leave us a review. I'll tell you, most of my listeners are on Apple, followed closely by Spotify, but some of those other podcast streaming services, they're not so far behind. And I always love seeing how people are finding me, how they're interacting with me. And some of it is because they saw that you enjoyed this podcast and that you left a review. So thank you so much for doing that. And I guess that's all I have to say about that. So grab your iced coffee and maybe your cold cookie. And as you listen to the episode, you'll understand why I'm suggesting those things. Settle in and listen to this week's episode of the podcast. Here we go. Once again, welcome back to the Motherhood Experience, where I am joined by one of my favorite Instagram follows. I feel like I have said that a few episodes here in a row recently. Belle's Dirty Dishes, aka Belle. Welcome to the Motherhood Experience.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, so we start every episode with ages of kids and stage of motherhood you're in. So why don't we start there?
So my oldest is a boy, and he just turned 5. And then I have a 3.5-year-old daughter and a daughter who turns 2 in June. So however old that is.
So you've got 3, 5, and under.
Yes.
And what does your childhood, your own personal childhood, and all you experience, what role does that have in your view of motherhood today?
Oh, well, that's a lot to unpack. Actually,
we're just getting right into it.
Yeah, just right into it. The last couple of weeks, actually, there have been a few things where my husband was like, I don't think you realize how much your childhood experiences, negative ones, play into how you handle things now, like with the children or, other people, but things that relate to my children. So I would say it impacts it so much, like daily basis. I'm thinking about, and managing things, trying to counter a lot of things that were in my childhood or things in, that I saw growing up. So yeah, a lot.
Yeah. And did that have an impact on you wanting to be a mother one day?
No, I always wanted to be a mom. I actually used to want to have like 16 kids. I used to say like, I want to get married when I'm like 17 and a half and have 16 kids.
Wow.
Which I have amended that goal. No longer shooting for that number. But no, I always wanted to be a mom.
Do you still want a large family, even if it's not 16 kids?
Not particularly.
No.
I would be content. I don't think I would be quite content with, the 3. Like I feel like I want another one.
Yeah.
But I would be totally content with, maybe one more child. And if we only ended up with the 3, I say only, like 3 isn't a huge blessing. But if we ended up not having any more children, I wouldn't feel like, oh, I didn't have a big family. Like that's not a particular like goal or desire of ours.
Yeah. So your Instagram account focuses a lot on motherhood, and I'm pretty sure that's how I found you when I got back on the Instagram train. So, what about your own motherhood journey led you to want to encourage and inspire other moms?
I mean, it was kind of a slide into it, really, because I had my page early on. My son was only 3 months old, and it wasn't a motherhood page. Originally, I wasn't even going to share about personal life, really. It was just one of those, like, hey, this is something I've always wanted to do. Like, let's see if I can be a food blogger and like grow it from the ground up. So it was exclusively food. And I was postpartum, and I really didn't like the idea of like sitting and nursing a million hours a day and just scrolling on the internet. So I'm like, why don't I try and build something instead? Also during COVID, early COVID, and all that craziness. So I think really it was just my own experiences and wanting to share more things that mattered more than food. And then also because of motherhood and the way, things were going, food didn't necessarily fit in. Like I try and keep it in there, but kind of what happened was to have like the quality that I wanted in my food content and reels and everything. I had my setup and everything, but my kids were getting to an age where they were with me in the kitchen and wanted to have their hands in there helping. And I was letting them, even though I'm not a very patient person and it was an exercise and sanctification. But what I noticed was that I was starting to get annoyed at them for things that weren't anything wrong, because they were messing up my setup. And because I
Mhm.
was filming, I was getting annoyed with them. And so I was like, okay, I can't, like, I'm not going to sacrifice that time with them to get good food content. So that was kind of a sacrifice, totally worth it on my part. But then a combination of that and food kind of not really fitting as much into my, content life. And then also just realizing more and more what really mattered. Like anytime that I posted or shared anything, like talked about motherhood, the response and the reaction was people was so like almost guttural is the word I want to use. Like it was because that's the stuff that, moms were really hungry for, was that
Yeah.
connection, that, being not being realizing that they weren't alone in something. And then just in so many areas of life, things have been harder than I was expecting, like marriage, motherhood, both way harder than I imagined and in ways I never imagined. And so I wanted to find a way to share in a way that I didn't really see on the internet. You had kind of two pendulums. You had the people that were like the Instagram perfect, like, oh, motherhood is butterflies and rainbows. And then you had the people that were like making fun of their kids, in really like not healthy ways, and, swearing about their kids and stuff. And you had like these two extremes, and I didn't really see much in the middle. And so I just, saw that as a lacking that I wanted to fill and share from a biblical, Christ centered perspective and point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how it was, kind of just happened organically, I would say.
And I would just say that that is why you are one of my favorite follows, because it's not only a highlight reel. It's certainly not a low light reel, at the expense of your kids or your husband or anything like that. But it's just a genuine in the moment. This is where I'm at. It could be good. It could be bad. It could be both. And I
That's
have,
usually what it is. It's usually a combination of both.
yeah, but I have appreciated that. And you've got a tremendous sense of humor. And I don't know if you're familiar with the comedian Nate Bargatze, but he's my age, we'll just say. So he's mid 40s.
Okay.
And he has a joke about how, he feels younger than that, especially when he's hanging out with younger people. And so I know that you're younger than me, but it feels like it. I don't want to say this to make you think that
No,
I,
go. You're
okay.
not gonna make me. I'm thick skinned, so
So
go.
I'm not saying this to say that you seem older because that's not it. But for where you are in your motherhood and your journey, you're just so sound, so wise, so down to earth. And
Thank you.
I really appreciate that perspective, because I think a lot of people maybe don't assume or think or view people younger than them in that same light,
I appreciate that.
for sure.
I don't feel I don't feel wise most of the time, especially in motherhood. It's been just in so many ways taken me by storm. Um, but any wisdom or soundness that I have, I credit to God and the people that God has brought into my life. I got married like late for my circle of friends and family. Like I was an older, I was 27 and a half when I got married. But I really think that God used, like when I look back, I'm like, wow, I'm so glad I didn't get married at 18 because God did so much work in me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, this was really hard. And I was much more mature and more sanctified when I became a mother. Like I cannot imagine becoming a mother at 18. So yeah, God gets all of the glory for that.
Yes. Yes, and amen to that. So let's talk about then kind of your ideals of motherhood before you were a mother, and now that you are a mother to three, how have those shifted and changed, and how has your approach to motherhood maybe been different than what you anticipated it would be?
It's a really good question. There are like some that come right off the bat. I need to think about. I can start with the ones that I know. Like I said so many stupid things. Like, and one was half joking, but I was also half serious. And my sister-in-law, my sister reminded me of this when I had like a 4-year-old that wasn't quite potty trained. But I would be like, my kids, these people that don't potty train their kids until they're however old, like my kids are going to be potty trained by the time they're 6 months old. Like I've heard about these Japanese techniques and blah, blah, blah. And like, I'm going to do that. And then like my kids are not going to be grubby. My kids are going to be well manicured and clean all the time. And anyway, now there's my son who looks like he bathes in a mud pit like every single day. And I always feel like I'm like explaining to, people, which I really shouldn't do. But anyway, so those are a couple superficial ways. And then I think I also, in a more serious note, I had this idea that like if you parented right and just things weren't acceptable to you, like when I saw kids that were just throwing tantrums or having these meltdowns or, doing things like that, I was like, wow, like that's just not acceptable. And like, I won't tolerate that from my kids. Fast forward to my son, not my husband, laying on the floor at the Ark encounter, like laying on the floor of the Ark, like having a meltdown. Oh, no, no, no. Actually, he wasn't laying on the floor there. We passed a kid that was laying on the floor, but my husband was like, well, that's him. Because like my kids have laid on the floor places and had tantrums, and it's not acceptable to me, but it still happens because they're children and they're still learning what's acceptable or what's not. And so I would say my expectations for that, like I've been really humbled by recognizing that you can't just go into motherhood with like, oh, this isn't going to be acceptable and this is never going to happen. Like our children have a sin nature. And also they're a brand new human being that's like learning what's acceptable, what's not, how to communicate and how not to. And so some of those things that like when I was growing up, things that were kind of made fun of, like that might go in line with like gentle parenting, even though I don't identify now as a gentle parent. I don't like those labels, but I much more can see like helping your child and equipping them, not having a like just spare the rod, spoil the child kind of mentality. So yeah, I would say just a lot of those like the expectations for a child's behavior and that focus on behavior in the really young ages, I would say has kind of changed a lot.
Would you say or agree that your approach in motherhood changes a little bit with each child for each child's sake?
Oh, 100%. My son is so different than our daughters and probably would be labeled with several different things. That's another thing that we're actually navigating right now. His brain works very differently. He communicates very differently. He learns very differently. Makes me so grateful that we're homeschooling because I think it would just be a disaster in the public school system. I mean, more than it is for everyone else. Yeah, it's so different for each child. Like one thing that works for one child works for the other. Yeah, I'd say it's very, very much that way.
What about surprises, pleasant surprises, we'll say,
Mm-hmm.
that you have found in motherhood, even though it is hard, it is challenging, but there is so much about motherhood that makes it so worthwhile. What are some things that
100%.
surprised you in the better sense about it though?
Oh, so many things. I think the joy of that first year of just the best way I can put it is watching this soul unfold
Mm.
and getting to see. I remember especially with my son, but honestly, my husband and I really go through the same thing with each child. Like, you maybe have more distractions as it goes, but I haven't found it less enjoyable or interesting with each child. And just like seeing them learn something new. Like with our son, it was more dramatic because it's the first time like you're seeing them every single day, this child that you have responsibility for and whatever. But just seeing them learn, raising their head or rolling over or how to say something, it's just so amazing. And then having that, the first time they say, I love you, mom, or the first time they put their arms around your neck, seeing them now having multiple, seeing those bonds form, like my daughters especially have this really beautiful bond and they just love each other and want to do everything together. They're starting to have a little a little conflict, but also helping them work through that. Like how satisfying it is actually to see the good fruit of things that you teach them. Like there will be days that are really discouraging and I'm like, is are things getting better or are things just getting worse? And then someone will do something to the other and the one will say like, I'm sorry, and the other one will say, I forgive you, and they'll hug and they'll reconcile and they'll be happy. And it's like, that's really like, I taught them that, and like they're learning good things too. So that's just really really satisfying. Yeah, I would say like I could probably come up with so many other things, but yeah, there's a lot that's way better than I ever imagined.
Yeah, those are super sweet moments. I would have to agree and concur with all of those. What about I'm going to make some assumptions about you because this is the first time that we've spoken outside of an Instagram DM.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me if I'm right or wrong, and then let's unpack it and see maybe why I would think these things, and we'll go from there if that's all right. So assumption number one is you like to make lists and keep track of things that need to be done or have been done.
I would say that's true, although I have like a little asterisk by that, but yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, what's the asterisk then?
The asterisk is that I'm not really, that's that is true, but some an assumption that like a side assumption that people normally make when they like gather that about me is that that's my nature. And
Hmm.
I would say that that's only like tiny bit of a nature because I think even as a child, like I would make my own homeschool lists and things like that. But it's also kind of I've trained myself like I'm not a type A personality, really. I don't know if I'm a type B, but I'm not type A. But I really don't like struggling. And I struggled without having structure. And so kind of learning those type A habits really helped give me more structure.
I really like that answer and that distinction actually.
Well, I think it's really important. And I try and emphasize that a lot when I share about routines or schedules or things like that with people because the response I would often get is, well, I'm just not a type A personality, or I'm just really not, like, I don't do well with structure. And I'm like, yeah, neither did I.
Mhm.
People are like, well, I'm just not that type of person. I'm like, I wasn't that type of person either, but that's kind of the point. Like, if you're not that type of a person, then learning some things that would help you become more that type of person. Hi. Someone just woke up from a nap.
Oh,
Can
she's
you
like,
say hi?
okay, now assumption number two is that this little one in your lap right now is the spirit animal of many of your followers.
I don't know about that. Probably because she's like my little emoji. She's got a lot of personality in
Yes,
this little body.
yes, and even more adorableness than personality. It's my favorite. Whenever she makes an appearance, I'm like, yes.
That's so funny. I actually haven't heard that much. So yeah, I you might have a better idea than I do. I know my sister is totally obsessed with her and thinks she's her like spirit animal, but yeah.
Going back to the listen routine answer, though, I do love that out of a struggle came a solution and also a way to share it with others,
Yes,
because
yeah.
you didn't just figure it out and be like, oh phew, I have it figured out. You were like, hey, maybe I'm not the only one here. Let's see if we can help other people. So how did that come to be, and what am I talking about? Let's unpack that first.
Okay, so yeah, so I put all of my routine schedules for keeping up with housework, keeping up with the to-dos we all have as moms, especially stay-at-home moms, getting meals on the table, balancing some rest in there without just feeling like everything's total chaos, keeping a house, this is for the moms who aren't content having just a total mess of a house 24/7. And so what kind of came again, like organically, is one of the things people would ask me a lot when I would do question boxes or have conversations and stories would be like, how do you do it all? Or how do you keep up with housework? How do you keep up with laundry? Like, those were the questions that kept coming when I would do like ask me anything. Like, they didn't really ask as much, I wouldn't get as many questions about my oils or my food or things like that. But the things that people really struggled with were they struggled with, well, they wanted recipe ideas, meals,
Mm,
and they struggled with how to keep up and without feeling like you're drowning in housework. And also just talking to other people, like other people I talked to were also going through the struggle of just like struggling to keep up. And I was like, I don't really feel like that. Like, I genuinely am like in a pretty good routine. And so because of that, I'm like, well, why don't I start like writing this down to get this in a format that people can really benefit from? And this was something that came from years, because I started really trying to work on this area in my life shortly before I got married, when I was doing, office work and administration and stuff. And I would, like, while I was working, I would have these productivity and like, whatever videos from people that seem to have it all together in that area, from more type A people. I would like watch their YouTube videos and stuff to get ideas and try and implement things. And so building up these habits over like 5 years, my kind of home routines ebook that it is now, this guide, was the culmination of trial and error going through many different stages of life, pre-children, then, new motherhood, then going from 1 to 2, and then from 2 to 3. And also balancing, building a social media presence and brand and all of that, while prioritizing my children and now homeschooling. So like going through a lot of things, and I'm never going to say like, oh, I balance everything perfectly and
mhm,
everything goes seamlessly and everything's always kept up with. That's part of what I talk about in the routines, and part of what I'm so passionate about is how to let go of like this perfection model, and how to kind of figure out what your priorities are and keep up with things in a very sustainable way. Like, stop. One of the things I always talk about is stop trying to do everything every day. Like, you need to know what to do on the right days and like the right times to do what you're going to do. And then I just decided, because my page is a business venture and building a brand and another income stream for my family, which I'm really grateful for. But after I put so much time into this, and I'm like, you know what, I would pay for this, so why not put a reasonable price on it? It's $35 ebook, and it's worth every penny, in my opinion. I added in there free printables and big picture, small picture, and it's written very simply so that it's not this overwhelming schedule, like, which I tried these, like, every day do this and this and this and this and clean this zone, and every week do this and this, and every 2 weeks do this and this, and every month do this. And it was like I had it hanging in my kitchen for a while. I think I stuck with it for maybe a couple days, and then it was done and just sat there making me feel bad until I took it down and threw it away. So yeah, I recognizing again, like, this, it all kind of goes back to remembering that we're not alone. Like, any struggle we're going through, someone else is going through it. Like, there's nothing new under the sun. And so I was like, if I'm going through this, someone else is. So let's like help, because I hate seeing, people, other moms specifically, struggle with things. Like, things are so, motherhood's serious, marriage is serious. Like, why struggle with things we don't have to struggle with?
mm. And I want to talk about oils and food. And just clarify, first of all, you're not talking about food oils,
No.
that you're talking about essential oils.
Yes.
But how, let me just say this. Another thing that I love about your account is I know that you're an oils lady. I know that you have this guide. Like, I know that there are these income generating business things that help provide for your family. But I also have never once, not one single time, felt that your presence exists to sell these things, to put them in front of me, to market to me. I've never felt that way. They're always just things that you share as you're using them, when it's practical, when it makes sense. And then you have this very approachable, I guess I'll say, persona where if you're interested in this or if you want to know how this can work for you, let's chat. Otherwise, if you're not interested, feel free
Keep
to tap the
scrolling.
screen. Yeah. And I love that so much because when I did come back onto Instagram for this podcast and I'm searching for motherhood account, it seemed like every single mom was selling something and selling it hard. And it wasn't so much motherhood content as here
A
are my
constant
links.
ad.
Yes, yes. And so finding your account was such a breath of fresh air. I was like, this is a mom. And I feel like I'm interacting with a mom, not a marketer.
I appreciate that. Like, that's a huge goal of mine. So I really am glad that that comes through.
Yes, well, it very much so. And it's a big reason. I mean, there are so many reasons why you're one of my favorites, but that's a big one. But also it makes me like I want to learn from you how to use my oils more effectively. Like I want to learn from you how to incorporate a routine more effectively. It just makes that desire more genuine and authentic rather than feeling like there's this obligatory burden for me to support someone I follow, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it totally does. And I can only take credit in part. Again, I mean, part of it's from wanting to present and have a craft an account that's like the accounts I like. So I don't know, like if these other people like following constant ad accounts, maybe they do, but I don't. Like I just unfollow those people after a while. Especially now that they're getting into the Amazon stuff. And so it's like everything is like, you need this viral tool in your thing. And it just immediately makes me want to scroll like, okay, well, that's my cue. But like, I don't want to hate on those moms. Like, I know they're just trying to like build something for their family too. It's just not my thing. So I don't want to like present that. I know the way, like, I do want to buy from, through people or support people that I like and, that I enjoy their content. So it's like, okay, so that's what I want. Like, then presumably that's what other people want.
Yeah.
And then also I've learned so much from a few people about the attraction marketing model versus, I don't even know what the other one would be, like icky
The shove
marketing
down
model.
your throat marketing
Yes,
model.
which is basically just you being the brand and being out there and being a real human being. And the people that are attracted to you or what you're selling will find you.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to shove my home routines book down the throat of someone who has a million excuses or reasons why it doesn't work or simply doesn't want it. I don't want to make it sound like everyone should want it. Like just doesn't want it. Like, okay, like move on. This is only for the people who want it. Or like oils, the people who are anti MLM or whatever, like you don't need to buy from me. Like go get it off Amazon and spend like 3 times as much. That's totally fine. Sorry, I throw so much shade. It's just my personality, and probably sanctification will work on that a little bit, but I'm sorry.
I think no, I don't think there's any apologies that need to be made because this is a real thing in today's society. Like this has become we don't know who the people are that we're following, but we know what they want us to use or buy or promote. I guess another assumption I've made is that you are someone who enjoys games, card games, board games, party games.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, very much so.
It seems like anytime I've seen you post while participating in any of them, it feels like you're having the time of your life.
Normally. I would say normally. There have been a few games that I'm just like, someone shoot me now so I can get out of this game. But yeah, I actually my uncle was in town. And when he comes in town, like his thing is rummy. And so he's so into it. He made my sister and I, like 10 years ago, he made us these binders to keep track of our like tallies, probably because he was beating us a lot at that point. So like when he was in town, he was at my parents and they live like down the street from us. So he came over and I went over and we played a few games. And I have to say, I beat him 2-1 in our series. But yeah, so I really enjoy games. My husband and I, like his family really plays games, and it's just a fun thing to do with people.
There was something you posted recently, and I can't remember exactly, so forgive me for all of these gaps in the details. But it was something about, I think maybe you were with friends and you had like serious strategy husbands, and then the wives
Yeah,
were
it was my cousin. I mean, we are friends. They're like our friends, but
okay.
it was my cousin and her husband, and they live in Holland, Michigan. But what's fun is that she and I were not close at all growing up, and like she was my least close cousin, just didn't know each other. And then in adulthood a few years ago we connected and started spending some time together, and our husbands really clicked. And so I mean, honestly, I think our husbands clicking is half of why we're so close. So we play euchre with them, and it started a couple visits ago. It was girls versus boys, and we were just got on this streak. And that one visit we had like an undefeated 6 game streak. And then they came over here, and my husband is very logical, analytical. He's in finance, he's, numbers, odds, all that stuff. And he was just glitching. My cousin used the term. He's like just because our wins at times were so against the odds, like going on a loner that didn't make sense, like he's like, it's not like you're playing a perfect game, like you're taking these risks and every single one's panning out, and like we're getting the crummy cards and all these things. He was just like, so that's why the reel you're probably talking about was I made this year when we were doing it, and it was like our streak was just, they have won a couple games now, but I don't even remember what our streak is. And it's like they're super analytical and serious and
Yeah.
whatever, and we're just like having fun and whatever, and we're just whomping them, and it's so great. Like,
Those kinds of situations in those games are my favorite, basically. I'm a very competitive person, but I also much prefer party games over, strategy games or something, because I just don't like, I want to win, but I don't want to have to put so much thought and energy into it.
mm-hmm.
you know? And so, like the game Risk, I told my husband, I'm pretty sure they call it Risk because the first people they tested it on was a married couple. And that marriage was tested, we will say.
That's funny.
So, yeah. So he and
I'm
my,
actually a big Risk fan.
you like it?
I do. I like Risk. When my grandmother was dying, she was at my parents' house, and I have this giant Lebanese family on my dad's side. So like everyone was there, and a bunch of my uncles and a few cousins and me played this hours and hours long game of Risk because like everyone was just there and like 24/7. So we just played this game, and it got down to me and my cousin, and then I think we called it. I don't think we finished, but I'm not 100%
Oh,
sure. I'm just pretty sure that he didn't win. So I don't remember if I won or if we called
if
it.
you didn't win.
Anyway, but yeah, I actually really like Risk a lot. It's one of those, but I kind of relate more with you in general. Like my husband's really into the strategy. Like he really doesn't like games that are heavy on, chance and stuff. He likes there to be a decent amount of skill, because the thing is like he's so like unlucky, if there is such a thing. And then I like one time his mom, actually I was playing a game with his mom, and she's like, if I believed in luck, I would say that you are the luckiest person I know. Because like, are you familiar with, is it called Mastermind?
Yes, yes.
And I wouldn't always take like the really logical approach of, you try these many colors and you try these, like I would just be like, you know what? I feel like she did that code. And I would put out this random thing and get like 3 pegs. And she'd be like, this is insane. so, so yeah, uh, we're pretty different in our game choices, but overlap.
That's hilarious. Yeah. I don't know about luck, but I do have more fun in the chance of it. And like when it comes to Risk, I think the last time we played as a family, I was just rolling on purpose to lose. And, then would just be like, oh no, you won, you beat my army kind of thing.
My brother-in-law, like there have been 2 times at least where he was playing poker with a bunch of us, and he was trying to lose, and he would just go all in to leave the game, and he kept winning. And we're all like, it's just so funny because it's happened like twice now where he's just trying to get out of the game and he just keeps winning and winning.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so another thing, this is a little smart alecky on my part, but I know you're a big fan of iced coffees, and I know that you're a big fan of cold cookies. And so I'm going to assume that there is some sort of disorder with your heat receptors in your mouth that make you not like those things warm.
I mean, maybe but I also like a lot of spice. So,
Okay.
you know,
Okay. So maybe
yeah,
you just need the respite then.
maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if you call not liking your mouth to get burned a disorder, then I'm disordered all day long. Maybe it was childhood trauma by getting handed the piping hot chocolate and drinking
Oh,
it,
that's a
that my
thing.
mom gave me. That can do a number.
Yeah, that is a
But
thing.
yes, I made progress though. This year I think I had 2 hot coffees in the winter.
And
But
you enjoyed them.
I did enjoy them.
Yes.
Normally it's like a sacrifice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm iced coffee pretty much all year round.
But the cookie thing,
So good. So much better. Have you tried it?
you know, I won't say that I've refrigerated cookies on purpose to eat them, but the first time I had a cookie that was like warmed up or, having them out of the oven once they cool a little bit, those are just, I mean, it's like a hot and fresh Krispy Kreme.
Okay.
They're
Well,
just
don't hate it until you try it though. So you
okay.
have like I literally made cookies last night and they're in the fridge. Like stick a cookie in the fridge or in the freezer and let it, no, just stick it in the fridge and let it get chilled. And the chewiness,
So
so
is it a texture thing more than a temperature thing for the cookies?
maybe.
Okay.
Um,
I'm
but
trying to get on board with you here. I'm
I mean, hey, it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. Just like iced coffee isn't for everyone. I mean, I think it is, but it's probably.
You're
I
right.
introduced my grandma had an iced coffee for the first time like a few years ago. I'm like, do you want an iced coffee? She's like, I've never had one.
My friend introduced me to iced coffee for the first time last year. It was like on the hottest day of the year. And she gave me an iced coffee. And I said, like, I can see how people could get behind this. Absolutely. But I don't know if I could picture myself having it every day.
Hey,
I,
to each their own. It's definitely like a non-salvific issue. Secondary, maybe.
for sure. For sure. So back to the food. And you talked about coming from a big Lebanese family. The love of food and Lebanese food in particular, is that something that has been kind of prioritized in family gatherings, maintaining that culture exposure? Do you just love it more? For you personally, I guess stemming from the larger family.
Um, I think so. I really enjoy. I mean, first of all, the food's the best. Like, it's arguably my husband's favorite cuisine, which is a good thing he married one.
Right?
One who can cook. And it's one of my favorite cuisines. It's my comfort cuisine, probably. And then also, I really like having a cultural cuisine. Like, American food has no culture in it. Like,
Yeah.
and in just generic food, there's no real tie. And I really like the ties that there are with the Lebanese food. Like, a lot of them are very communal, rolling grape leaves or making these things. And I learned a lot of them from my grandmother or my aunts. And there are these really fun memories that I have and experiences of, talking and rolling grape leaves or mixing up kibbeh or, you know, and making a number of things, meat pies, mishadra, all these things. And so on top of it just being really delicious, amazing food, there's a lot of culture and there's something really neat about this specific cultural food that you're tied to that I also want to, pass on to my kids, like, a cheeseburger or whatever, which is actually American anyway. Um, like it doesn't like this is a food that came back from thousands of years that I learned from my grandmother who learned from her grandmother.
Right.
And, even though a lot of it is Americanized in the way we do it now, like I use the Instant Pot with the grape leaves because it's superior. But yeah, I just really enjoy that. And as much as I'm not into making your identity like your culture or your ethnicity, because as a Christian, my identity is in Christ, but still that culture, I think culture is missing a lot. And so much bonding happens over food and how we nourish our bodies. And so I do enjoy incorporating, like, that's not not a priority of my family culture, but I enjoy incorporating that Lebanese food and the culture around that food into my home with my
Yeah.
family.
I can't remember how many years ago now, maybe 10, coming up on 11, maybe. My cousin married a man from Lebanon, and the food at the rehearsal dinner was unlike any food I've had, unlike any experience I've had with food in my life. There's a picture of me eating some kind of meat pie. And even though it's a picture of me eating food, which are never really the most flattering pictures you can have of yourself, you can tell that I am experiencing such next level joy. It was phenomenal.
It's like
That like
pictures of men holding their fish that they catch.
what's that?
It's like the equivalent of what men look like when they catch a fish.
Yes. Yes. You can feel the joy radiating from the picture with my prize catch of this. It's like the spice blend in this
So
meat pie was so out
next
of this
level.
world. So yeah, I
Yeah,
totally get it. So
yeah.
what about in your motherhood journey do you anticipate or look forward to in the upcoming years?
I really look forward to this stage when my children are more like, which I'm actually getting close to this now because my son and my daughter, mostly my son, has already started asking some pretty heavy, like theological questions. But getting to that point where they're full human beings, like that you can just have a conversation with, I look forward to going through the puberty years, ironically enough. I think so much because my husband and I have a really clear picture of like what we don't want to do, and we have not as clear of a picture of what we do want to do.
Hmm.
And just really helping to guide them through those what can normally be really difficult years in ways that we weren't. So
Hmm.
so I really look forward to that.
That is not an answer I would say I get often. So that I love that perspective, honestly. And what would you say to a mom who might be listening today who is just trying to strike that balance between managing her home, raising her children, managing relationships, whether it's on social media or outside of social media, but just feels pulled in many different directions. She wants to accomplish things, but doesn't know that she is. What would you say to her?
I would say, first of all, cutting out unnecessary things if you're feeling overwhelmed, which I feel at times. Cutting out the unnecessary things is really helpful. Saying no to things, even if it's something that maybe you want to, but if you know that it's going to stress you out or stretch you so that you can't show up for those things that you have to in a way that you want to, I would say that's a really good thing. Like, make your circle smaller, make your days smaller and slower. I would say start with your days before you try and manage big picture things. Start with getting your days more in order. This was something that was really helpful for me that now it's just kind of like second nature. But until it gets to that point, like you have to exercise the habit. It's like building muscles. So, whether it's like block scheduling really helped me. So, separating your days into 2 to 3 hour sections. And then, do this the night before. Write out like the things that you're going to do in those sections and include things like snuggle time. Like, I have time when my kids wake up, like my daughters specifically always want and need some snuggle time. So I write that into that time block because I know it's going to happen. And if you don't write those things in, then you're going to feel guilty, even though you shouldn't,
Hmm.
because that thing that's not on your to do list isn't, this doesn't matter because it's not on your list. So remember that those things do matter and they matter the most, but you don't have to sacrifice everything else for that. You just have to order it. So, getting your days in order. I have like some non negotiables. A lot of this actually came from this planner I got that had these things filled in. And I was like, oh, that's really helpful. And it had like this morning checklist. And it was like, put a load of laundry in, pray, get dressed, like eat breakfast, and things like that. And so that really helped me, like, just start establishing those daily habits.
Yeah.
And if your life starts with your days, your life comes one day at a time. So start with those days. And I think that will really help you get things in order. And if that's helpful to you, and if you're looking for more help, then I have a home routines ebook that might be helpful with the rest of that. Yeah, also I think just letting go of the idea that you have to do it all and that you're somehow in a competition with someone else. Like, do what works for you, because you're living your life, not anyone else's life.
Yes.
And no one's doing it all.
Amen. Amen to that. There is one more question that I want to ask, and you've touched on it a couple of times throughout, and you've mentioned like the word sacrifice, because I feel like sometimes when that word is said, there's a negative connotation associated with it, and it doesn't have to be a bad thing to exercise sacrifice. So how would you explain that to another mom?
Well, I guess I would say that in the context of where I would use that where it's not a negative thing is that sometimes you sacrifice something that you want for something that you want more. So, like sacrificing having the cookie right now because maybe you want to fit into your clothes better in the long run. Or, sacrificing, last night, I really wanted to sit on the couch. I'd had a long day. It'd been a hard parenting day. I really wanted to sit on the couch, but I hadn't reached my step goal. And so I went outside and I went for a walk. And it was for the exercise, but it was also for, like, I knew it would be really good for me mentally.
Yeah.
To go for that walk and get outside. So I think sacrifice, it has a negative connotation, but it actually is a really good thing a lot of the times because you sacrifice something that maybe a part of you wants for something that a higher part of you needs or wants even more.
How can people find you now that I've raised you up and shared my assumptions and you've encouraged every mother who's listening? How can they find you?
So the place you can find me every single day, basically every single day, I hang out on Instagram in my stories, at least a little bit. My handle is Belle's Dirty Dishes, Belle like the princess. I go by that. My husband actually came up with that name, which he reminds me frequently. He attributes my success to that name. It's not my real name. It's my favorite Disney princess. Just, we thought for safety purposes that it was a good idea to kind of have a moniker, an alter ego on there. And I also have a website which has more static resources, which is bellsdirtydishes.com. And I'm still building it out, but I have a lot of recipes, iced coffee recipes, some sourdough guides, some mom resources, things there. And so, and if there's ever anything you're looking for, like, please, there's a comment pop-up that comes up, like you can comment on there and tell me things you like to see. I have a weekly free meal plan email that goes out that you can subscribe to on there. So trying to flesh that out, but yeah, that's another good place to find me. Those are the main places. Like I cross post a little bit to TikTok or YouTube, but barely ever. So that's pretty much where you can find me.
Yeah. And please do go and find her. Again, thank you so much for agreeing to come on the podcast. I've enjoyed our conversation.
I did too.
And I know that also I've enjoyed your co-host over there.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for all of your encouragement. That was a blessing to my day. I don't know if I believe in the love languages, never read the book, but if I do, words of affirmation is probably like, that's really encouraging to me. Like when people, cause I think everyone doubts themselves and doubts if what they're doing really matters or is having a positive impact. And I'm at the point where I do know enough like that it does have a positive impact. And, God says that the word will not go out, without returning back 100-fold, but I'm always kind of concerned that I'm getting in the way of the word. So anyway, that's really encouraging, and this was fun. It's only my second. I've been on my sister's podcast, but I haven't been on another one, so this was fun.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Motherhood Experience podcast. To join our exclusive TME community, head over to the motherhoodexperience.com/learn more. Be sure to follow the Motherhood Experience on Facebook or Instagram, and please leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment below, and we'll catch you next time.